The café was warm with the soft hum of conversation and the comforting clatter of ceramic cups meeting saucers. Outside, the late afternoon sun filtered through rows of maple trees, casting trembling shadows on the sidewalk. Inside, people moved through their routines, baristas calling out orders, students bent over laptops, an elderly couple sharing a slice of cake in silence that spoke of decades together. It was an ordinary day, the kind that rarely announces it is about to become unforgettable. Daniel sat near the window at a wooden table meant for four but barely large enough for the life he carried with him. His daughter Lily, 3 years old and full of soft curls and questions, sat on his lap playing with the paper sleeve of his coffee cup. Across from him, his 8-year-old son Noah swung his legs beneath the table, tracing invisible shapes on the wood with a fingertip. Daniel looked tired in the way only single parents do, eyes that had seen too many sleepless nights but still held a quiet steadiness, a promise that he would endure whatever tomorrow demanded. He had chosen the corner table deliberately. It gave the children space, and it gave him a clear view of the door. Ever since their mother had left 2 years ago, Daniel had become watchful without realizing it. He watched doors, faces, small changes in mood. He had learned that stability for his children depended on noticing the slightest tremor before it became an earthquake. Noah was in the middle of telling a dramatic story about his science project when the cafe door opened with a soft chime. Daniel's gaze lifted automatically. A young woman stepped inside, pausing just beyond the threshold as if gathering courage. She looked to be in her early 20s. Her blonde hair was tied back in a high ponytail, and she wore a simple blue top tucked into denim shorts. But it was the crutches under her arms and the careful way she balanced herself that drew attention. Her left leg ended above the knee, the smooth curve of a prosthetic limb visible beneath the hem of her shorts. She moved with practiced determination, each step deliberate yet dignified. Conversations near the entrance quieted for a fraction of a second, long enough to be noticed, short enough for people to pretend it hadn't happened. Daniel saw it. He always noticed those moments. He saw the way a couple glanced at her and then quickly looked away. He saw the barista hesitate before smiling a little too brightly. He saw the woman's shoulders stiffen as she crossed the room. Lily followed his gaze. "Daddy," she whispered with innocent curiosity, "why she got sticks?" Daniel brushed a curl away from Lily's face. "Those are crutches, sweetheart. They help her walk." Lily nodded as if that made perfect sense. Children were generous with acceptance. The cafe was nearly full. Only 2 empty chairs remained, one at a small table beside the door and the other at Daniel's table. The chair at the door was wedged tight against a wall, barely accessible. The young woman glanced at it and then at the crowded tables. She adjusted her grip on the crutches and began navigating between chairs. Daniel saw the calculation in her eyes. He recognized it because he had made similar calculations when entering rooms alone with 2 children and no partner to lean on. Where to sit? Who might mind? How much space do I deserve? She reached his table and stopped. For a moment, she seemed unsure whether to speak. Noah looked up at her curiously. Lily stared openly, fascinated. The young woman cleared her throat softly. "Excuse me," she said, her voice steady but threaded with vulnerability. "Can I sit here? Just until a table frees up?" Daniel felt something tighten in his chest. It wasn't discomfort, it was awareness. He knew the weight behind that simple question. It wasn't just about a chair. It was about being allowed to exist without apology. "Of course," he said immediately, rising halfway from his seat. "Please, take this one." He moved to pull the chair out for her, careful not to bump the crutches. Noah quickly slid his backpack under the table to make space. "Thank you," she said, offering a small smile. It reached her eyes but carried a hint of caution, as if she was braced for something unpleasant. Daniel steadied the chair while she maneuvered herself into it with practiced skill. Once seated, she leaned the crutches carefully against the table. There was a brief silence, the kind that can either turn awkward or meaningful. "I'm Daniel," he said gently. "Emma," she replied. Lily leaned forward. "Hi, Emma. I'm Lily." Emma's expression softened instantly. "Hi, Lily. And I'm Noah," the boy added with solemn importance. "Nice to meet you, Noah." Daniel watched as some of the tension drained from Emma's shoulders. Children had that effect. They didn't stare with pity, they stared with curiosity. There was a difference. "Coffee," Daniel offered, gesturing toward the counter. "Can I grab you something?" Since you're stuck with us. Emma laughed quietly. That's kind, but I already ordered. They said they'd bring it to me. Daniel nodded. He noticed how carefully she kept her hands folded in her lap, as if minimizing herself. He wondered how many times she had been made to feel like an inconvenience. Outside, a car passed, its reflection sliding across the window like a fleeting memory. Inside, the cafe resumed its normal rhythm. But at their table, something had shifted. Noah tilted his head. Does it hurt? He asked bluntly. Daniel's heart skipped. Noah. It's okay, Emma interrupted softly. She looked at Noah, not at Daniel. Not anymore. It did, a long time ago. But now it's just different. How it happened. Noah persisted. Daniel prepared to redirect again, but Emma surprised him. Car accident, she said simply. 3 years ago. The words were calm, but Daniel caught the flicker behind them, a flash of something unresolved. He knew that look too. He had worn it after the divorce papers were signed, after promises had dissolved into silence. I'm sorry, Noah said, suddenly solemn. Emma smiled. Thank you. Lily leaned even closer, studying the prosthetic with unabashed fascination. It's shiny. Emma chuckled. Yeah, it kind of is. Daniel watched the exchange carefully. He admired the way Emma answered without bitterness. But he also sensed how exhausting it must be to explain yourself again and again. The barista approached with a latte, setting it gently in front of Emma. Here you go. Thank you, she said. Daniel wrapped his hands around his cooling coffee. He felt an unexpected pull to know more about her, not out of curiosity alone, but out of recognition. There was a loneliness about her that mirrored his own. So, he ventured, do you come here often? Emma shook her head. First time, actually. I just moved into the apartment building across the street. Daniel glanced toward the window. Welcome to the neighborhood. Thanks. She hesitated. I wasn't sure about coming in. Crowded places are tricky. Daniel understood without needing clarification. You did fine. She met his eyes, searching for condescension. She found none. You have a beautiful family, she said quietly. Daniel felt a familiar ache. Thank you. It's just us three. Emma nodded, as if filing that away gently. There was something fragile about the moment, 4 lives intersecting in a way none of them had planned. Outside, the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in amber hues. A group at the next table laughed loudly, drawing glances. Emma flinched almost imperceptibly. Daniel noticed. First days in a new place are hard, he said. Everything feels louder. Emma's lips curved faintly. Yeah. Noah returned to his science project story, this time including Emma as an audience. Lily began showing her a crayon drawing pulled from a small backpack. Emma leaned in with genuine interest, asking questions, praising colors. Daniel watched as the children accepted her effortlessly. No pity, no awkwardness, just presence. He found himself wondering what had happened after the accident. Who had stayed? Who had left? He knew that tragedies often revealed the fault lines in relationships. Emma caught him looking and raised an eyebrow slightly, amused. What? Nothing, he said. Just thinking. About how strange life is, he admitted. You walk into a cafe, ask for a chair, and suddenly you're part of someone's afternoon. Emma considered that. Yeah, life doesn't really warn you, does it? Daniel's gaze drifted to Lily's curls, to Noah's animated gestures. No, it doesn't. A quiet understanding passed between them. 2 people altered by events they never chose. Emma took a sip of her latte. Her hands trembled slightly, and she steadied the cup carefully. Daniel pretended not to notice. Do you work nearby? He asked. Not yet, she replied. I'm figuring things out. There was a story there, layered and heavy. Daniel sensed it but didn't pry. Noah suddenly asked, do you run fast with that? Daniel almost choked on his coffee. Noah. Emma burst into genuine laughter this time. Not yet, she said. But I'm learning. Maybe you can race me, Noah declared. Maybe I will, she answered. Daniel smiled despite himself. It had been a while since laughter at his table included someone new. The cafe lights flickered on as dusk settled. One by one, customers began to leave. The once crowded room grew quieter. Emma glanced around. Looks like I don't need to steal your chair anymore. Daniel felt an unexpected reluctance. You're not stealing anything. She hesitated, then said softly, you didn't have to say yes. Daniel leaned back slightly. I know. There was honesty in that exchange. He hadn't said yes out of obligation. He had said yes because something in her request felt like a test the world had given him, and he had wanted to pass. Emma gathered her crutches carefully, preparing to stand. Daniel rose instinctively to steady the chair again. She accepted the help without protest this time. Thank you, she said, and this time the words carried more weight. Not just for the seat. Daniel held her gaze. Anytime. Lily waved enthusiastically. Bye, Emma. Noah added, don't forget the race. Emma smiled, eyes bright. I won't. She turned toward the door, navigating the space with measured steps. The chime sounded again as she exited into the cooling evening. Daniel stood for a moment longer than necessary, watching through the window as she paused on the sidewalk, adjusting her grip before crossing the street toward the apartment building she had mentioned. He felt something stir inside him, a quiet shift, like a door opening just a crack. Daddy, Lily murmured sleepily against his shoulder, Emma nice? Yes, he said softly. She is. Noah tilted his head. Will we see her again? Daniel looked toward the building across the street, where a light flicked on in a second-floor window. Maybe, he replied. He gathered their things, settling Lily against his hip and taking Noah's hand. As they stepped out into the evening air, Daniel felt the lingering echo of that simple question. Can I sit here? It had seemed so small. But sometimes the smallest requests carried the heaviest histories. And sometimes, saying yes opened a story neither side expected. Across the street, behind a lit window, Emma leaned her crutches against the wall and allowed herself to breathe. For the first time since moving in, the apartment felt less empty. Neither of them knew it yet, but that ordinary afternoon had shifted the course of more than one life.